we've been talking about a lot about digitalization, and at least to me, it seems that in every sector, it tends to come in three phases. I've been in transportation for pretty much all my adult life, and I think right at the time of millennial, it was the first stage. It's the total denial, saying that okay, digitalization, this internet, nothing to do with transportation, nothing to do with mobility at all. You know, we're off it. And then I'd say we're gone past the second phase, or we're soon entering the third phase. And the second phase is normally where you start thinking, yeah, with the old structures, let's have something over the internet. Let's do something, but keep the structures as they are. And then the third phase tends to be like when Zalando comes in, when Google enters media, when somebody really disrupts the structures that we have in any given sector. And I would argue that now we're just about facing that in mobility or transportation. Now the big question is, we've been talking about cars, but actually I'd argue we don't really buy cars. We actually buy the dream of freedom of mobility, what was started by T. Ford way back long ago. Now the question is, with digitalization, is there something that could be as good or even more desirable than owning your own car? How many of you actually own a car or have a car? Okay, now for these few minutes I'll be here, try to think of an offer that I'd have to give you to get rid of that. What would I have to promise? Because I think that is the big question. What is the new freedom of mobility of the digital era? And that's what we're trying to do. As said, I'm being called father of mobility as a service concept. I don't mind. Nobody's been able to kick me so far for saying that. At least I've been dumb enough to talk about it for a long time. But now it's picking up a bit wind. I think that the enablers are there. But we have to answer a huge question. What would be a better alternative to car ownership? I get this a lot. I actually flew in from Helsinki today, and once again I heard some businessmen talking about this. Have you tried this app? Have you tried Uber? Have you tried Lyft? Have you tried Drive Now? Have you tried all of these great apps? And eventually, after 2 minutes of talking, they all come to, why on earth do I actually have to have 30 different apps for my mobility? So what if I was able to offer all of that to you from any given A to any given B with just one click? But I still don't think that's going to be good enough to replace the dream of the freedom of mobility that a car provides. I'd say that you have to go a bit more. You'd have to guarantee that it's not just one A to one B. It has to be all the A's, it has to be all the B's, and with a guarantee, and hopefully even with a fixed fee, saying that, okay, you're covered, you have everything. Maybe something like this. Different packages, just like your telecom subscription, like I have here. It covers everything. I don't have to worry about it too much. Even the data is there. It even roams when I come here. It still works. And what if we were to, or at least some of us would start buying our mobility that way? Would it be good enough? And what would I actually have to give as a service guarantee? Yes, this is an English version. Cup of tea. Guarantee. Would that be good enough? And it all comes down to actually a term that we know from IT. It's the SLA, the Service Level Agreement. How good would it have to be to really be compelling enough to look like the freedom of mobility, what car is actually providing? What would I have to promise? Is it 5 minutes of any given door and going somewhere? Is it just public transport, taxis and anything? What would it take? And I think there's a lot to be explored here. And this is where we're trying to go for with mobility as a service. But is it a big thing then? Well, let's say that the evolution is something similar to telecom. I'm coming from Finland, so we kind of know the disruption would happen in telecom, and if I would have been saying that there's a big disruption and the hottest business on earth is telecom, and would have been doing that in the year 85, I think I would have been laughed out. You know, plugging connections like this, there's nothing over there. But when it changed, it actually did bring about lots of innovation and a totally new business there. And if you believe that there is a digital tsunami that is also hitting transportation sector, then What if it is something like this? And is it big? And I'd say that the drivers are there for change. If you look at the enablers, banking would not have been something that disrupted. It would not be able to be something up in the clouds as it is now, had it not been internet first sold to every one of our homes. So you need the enablers there. And I'd argue most of the enablers are now there. There's even the trends with the millennials. If you look at them and if you ask them what do they aspire, it's not owning a car. It really isn't. You can see that from even getting a driver's license. I don't know if you're familiar with the 18 to 20-year-olds in Stockholm. Only 9% out of them actually get a driver's license. So they do get that afterwards, but what it tells is that the young urban ones their aspiration is not getting a car. It comes when they get their second kid and they're suburbanized, and they're forced to do that. So, business-wise, if we compare it with telecom, average revenue per user that they can draw out of any given individual is roughly about 30 euros. And yes, I like to use euros while we still have them. So you need to take all the advantage out of it. But for transportation, for mobility needs, it's 10 times as big. It's actually almost the size of that. So if that type of a market is reshaped, and if there's an operator that is on top of that, of course it's interesting. And I would even argue with any economists that if you want to think about productivity gains or growth of economy, this is the second largest consumption for individuals. Even if it's done through leasing or however, second largest consumption. It's based on ownership of cars. Actually, from that ARPU, that 300, 120 is normally roughly about the capital cost of a car, 120 is using it, and 60 only is the services. So most of that value is based on an asset used only 4%. If any one of you is your banker, I'd come to you with the world's largest factory, that big, and I'd tell you, okay, look, if I really push it, I'll get the usage up to 5%. Would you give me the money? No, you probably wouldn't. So at least there's potential. There's a lot of potential there. Huge market, huge money, a lot of potential. And I would argue, like in any other sector, that there's a layer, an operator or aggregator level or layer of business that comes on top of the existing one. That's happened in so many other fields as well. And it's an interesting one, if you can be there, because then you're on top of that 300 euro ARPU. And that's, of course, where you'd want to be. This is actually a picture that I stole from Finnish ministry, from Finnish government. This is how they see the new market evolving. They're wanting to push that. Luckily enough, we have in the same ministry, we have the guys that, it's Ministry of Transport and Communication, which means that the same guys that wrote the laws of GSM are now rewriting the laws for transportation. And it's an interesting field in that sense. As said, for a couple of months, I've been dumb enough to be in a company that actually is trying to do this. So it really is possible to do it right now. And I've been kind of overwhelmed and surprised from Finland that we've been gaining so much interest in actually trying to pull this together. And I've also been surprised because a few years ago, I think it was a journalist from USA Today asked, yeah, it's a nice vision, nice concept. When do you think you can realize that? And honestly, I was saying 2025, something like that. But sometimes world just moves faster. And now it's actually possible to do these things. Have something that's better than your own car, have monthly fee for all transportation, not just the car, using all the existing bits and pieces that actually are evolving and getting better all the time. Much more than just trip planner, because it really gets you there, not just tells you how you could get there. So this is what we're doing now. We're actually building this so that I'm going to sell my car. Yes, I'm a father of 4, and I'm going to sell my car in June. Let's see if that happens. So far, my wife has threatened that she'll buy it off me, but let's see. Let's see how it goes. But we've been progressing better than I expected, so we're able to actually pull it off, make that service happen, and probably this year even in 2 other areas. I'm going to Manchester tomorrow, and I think that the other areas could be parts of UK. It would be actually a nice place to get started. So, this is actually our evil plan for world domination that we're going to do, get on top of that and be way, way, way bigger than Ubers and the others, because we're on top of the actual mobility. It does change a lot of, if this comes true, it does change at least to some extent how the companies perceive this. Many companies, big companies, are coming to me and say, okay, if you could pull this off, we'd like to get from actually having the cars and leasing them into cash-based allowances. But there hasn't really been anything to serve the people with it, because it's been either you get a company car or you get a public transport ticket. That's pretty much it. Nobody's been able to fix it in a way that we're trying to at least pull off. So, this is what mobility as a service is and what we're about to do with it.